protection, which is critical, ensuring reliability in access to safe, effective, and quality health products and technologies. If we can guarantee that happens, I will have done my job as the Executive Director of African Pharmaceutical Network, and I will have actually been in a good place to retire from my role and say, now somebody else probably can create a new vision and carry it forward, or if not, we have to ask ourselves if something I didn't do right that actually somebody can do better. Professionally, I've worked within the industry for the last 9 years or so. I interacted with Ronald, as he mentioned, when we were students leading student associations. And I would say that is when I got Uganda as my second home. I've maintained my friendship from 2017 to this particular moment across Uganda in the different spaces. And in those conversations, it has always been a matter of, yes, we met a student in leadership. He was leading Uganda Pharmacy Students Association. I was leading the Pharmacy Students Association of Kenya in the other side. And we were collaborating. There were key common challenges and common pain points. Currently, as we're talking, there are some of your interns who are in prison or in jail. There are those who are yet to go for the internship. I don't know how that's happening, but the similar challenges that we have as pharmacists on the other side, there are those who have not been posted for internships, right? So how do we bridge those gaps and actually ensure that our professionals are able to practice, but also able to move to the frontier? And the essence of it is, what can we do for each other? What can we do for the profession? But not only for the profession. The profession exists to serve the patients, to serve the populace, to drive growth and economic development in our countries. That is what we are hoping for. So over that year, I would say my role has been either in policy, regulatory affairs, and commercial market access solutions, both within industry with Novartis, within industry association, leading Kenya Healthcare Federation as the head of the supply chain committee, and currently with African Pharmaceutical Network. So with that said, I'll get into the gist and the specifics of what we stand for as an organization. So African Pharmaceutical Network started our journey in 2020. Anybody can tell us what they know about 2020? COVID year, right? Everybody talks about COVID because we understand COVID 2020. We all understood the disruption and the impact of the pharma industry and the healthcare access across the continent and globally, I would say. And the essence of it was, when we have a disease outbreak, in the magnitude of what we had with COVID, the patients, wherever they are, in case they are sick, they still need care, right? They still need care. And that care starts from diagnostic technologies, vaccines, if they can prevent the disease, therapeutics in treatment. When they are sick, they need to be managed. And all those products that they expect to be delivered must be delivered by a professional. That professional can work in the research and development and downstream. We can have them in the market access from regulatory product registration, dossier compilation and all that. And then ultimately in supply chain to guarantee the medicine gets to the patient in the last mile. Because if that product does not leave the bench in the research lab into the clinical store and the clinical pharmacy distribution chain, and actually on the patient's bedside, there's no solution. All the solutions that we will have designed will have failed. And therefore, when we started off in 2020, the key pain point that we were seeing was that we have an ecosystem where the professional in the hospital is saying, we don't have medicines. So it's out of stock. What are we telling the patient? Go look for it, right? What is the guarantee that they'll get the right patient, the right product that they need? There's no guarantee. On the other side, the person in the industry is saying, I'm not getting as many orders for my products. So they're asking, David, should I continue registering or should I deregister my product from NDA list? That is the truth. So the commercial side, they're saying there's no order, so there's no need to maintain a license that I'm paying retention every year and nobody is buying my medicine. The pharmacist in the hospital is saying, it's out of stock, go look for it. The person in the lab is saying, the policy ecosystem is not right to incentivize me to research and develop new products. But yet all these people who are complaining, their solution is on the other side, right? Because if the person on the other side in the hospital will go, actually this guy has a product that is available to be distributed, we just need to know who can finance it for the supply chain to work. And our essence was, can we establish a platform that would facilitate these conversations, bring these different professionals in their different domains of practice together, And when they are able to share their experiences, their perspective, their insights, we're able to unlock value. And in unlocking that value, then we understand where the problem is, we understand the people who have technical, professional, and operational expertise and capabilities because they are doing that job and they know where the gaps are. That insight in a common platform, we can now design solutions. And it is those solutions that will guarantee that patient in Bulago can get their medicine when they need it. And that is what we aspire to. So that was the foundational principle of coming up with African Pharmaceutical Network as a platform to bring us together to facilitate growth of the industry and to deliver care to that person. The foundation of it, I've already talked about some of the challenges, and the mission, as I said, is ensuring reliability in our workforce development. The professional must be competent, must be empowered, and must be meaningfully engaged to deliver the work. You're competent, but your family is starving. Will you be happy about it? So how do we ensure that we have that enabling ecosystem for the professionals to deliver? That is where we start. And then we look at it from a point of the business ecosystem. And what I talk about in business ecosystem is, if I'm employed in a company and the company is not making money, the next thing when they're managing the airport, they will go home. Yeah? Which means that person is also at risk. But what will make the business not run? Do they have access to the market? What are the regulatory regimes? Is there predictability? But on the other end, is there an enabling market access solution that will enable them to supply with guarantee that they'll get paid at the end of the day? That then ensure that there's continuity and cyclicality of that business system. And the last piece, we work in countries. These countries have laws, regulations, policies. Those policies, aspirationally and in an ideal world, they should be reflective of our realities where we work. Our realities in our aspirations of what we aspire for in that exists. But at the end of the day, the most fundamental thing that we should never lose focus on. Laws are there to protect those people who might not be able to protect themselves. Are they safeguarding the interests of the patient, of the communities that we serve? And if we're able to do our work by catalyzing these conversations, ensuring that laws in our countries, the regulatory framework that enable them, the guidelines that are formulated, are enabling the professional practice to deliver the products that we need, the industry to thrive, and guarantee the patient gets what they need, that will be an enabling system. That is what we aspire for. So that captures the three different pillars of our work. The professional with the right knowledge, the right skills, and the right working ecosystem, workforce development, enabling business environment for the businesses, and the last pillar is an enabling policy ecosystem and policy framework that guarantees we're able to grow sustainably and in a reliable manner and we aspire. So that is what we do as African Pharmaceutical Network. And we defined a couple of values that we believe are fundamental to what we do and why we do it. We're in the healthcare space, which is a social sector, but at the same time we're dealing with human lives. Your single decision can determine whether the patient lives or dies, whether they get the solution they need or they fail to get it, whether they trust the healthcare system or not. But that trust will determine how they have things. And therefore, what we look at humanity. If we are going to serve human beings and individuals that we care about, that we love, they are our brothers, our sisters, ourselves, we need to treat them with respect, dignity, compassion, and care. Humanity comes first in our work. And we are hoping that every single professional in the room, every pharmacist here, humanity comes first. Ultimately, we anchor it with integrity. If you care about people that you're doing unethical things, in the process you're harming the next person, right? So how do we ensure that we're grounded in integrity? The third one is professionalism. You are a professional. You possess expertise and specialized knowledge in your domain of work. And we expect that to be an emblem that we could say, if I meet Collins as a fellow pharmacist, I'm proud to say, this is my colleague. This is my peer in the industry who is doing the best they can to serve the patient that we're looking at. How do we demonstrate that in how we conduct ourselves? How do we engage? How do we, like, you be a model of what we aspire for? And we hope that that becomes the great value that we actually espouse in the industry. The last two, we'll talk about the services that we offer, the key solutions that we bring as well in the system. In every single thing that we do as an organization, we are working with individuals, either solving a problem for them or enabling them to solve a problem. And in doing that, the question we ask ourselves, am I creating value for them? Am I a plus in the ecosystem or a minus? If I'm a minus, you won't come to work with me, right? Definitely. Do you guys just go to things because you're going there because you're kind? Or is it because there's value that you're hoping to get out of it? These are one of the greatest teams that we're starting off the journey with in Uganda. The virtue that you are the professionals within the industry, we have manufacturer, we have the regulator, we have the professionals. If we're able to join our hands together, walk this journey together, we're able to impact the lives of the people that we have and able to deliver solutions. And those are the key values that are helping us move in this journey, and it's helping us in initiating conversation with the people we aspire to have those conversations, but also to move forward in this journey together with them. Those are critical. So what does our work entail? And this is now me talking about the key things that program tracks that we do have. I'll move to this side so that you can have a look at it. We have four key early in the evening. We started off for saying when we are trained in our academic institution, we live with our qualifications, but generally across the continent of Africa, there's a bias toward clinical practice, hospital practice. But the reality is, when we're talking about spurring growth of the industry, how do we enable that growth by being cognizant of the skill sets and the competencies that we need from the industry? And therefore, one of the key things that we started off was bringing in place professional development courses that are tailored to get towards equipping, defined and structured towards what skills do we need, how do we get the professionals. There's regulatory affairs, pharmacovigilance, and I'll talk about them as we move along. But also now doing that with the industry. And I know those are some of the conversations that we're having with the Adrian and team, but also with my colleagues in Kenya. How do we ensure that that training is not only theoretical, but also grounded on the realities of what is happening in the industry? Because if I read all the pharmaceutics and textbooks, but I've never seen an industry manufacturing flow, ultimately it's just theory. How does that quality translate into GMP standards that the FDA will expect of you? So we'll end up in a situation where we need you to meet WHO qualification standards, but you don't have the competent professionals to deliver that, so then there's a disconnect. And that is what we are aspiring from the academy. We are able to drive that. In the business ecosystem, support is saying, what are the regulatory, because entry into market for a business, on the other side, for the business as a thrive, you need to know, what is the business ecosystem? Who are the probable distributors actually who are already meeting the GSPP standards? What is the market insights on where to bring products and where not to bring the product? But also which products we really need to look into. And therefore then that ecosystem we look at it for market research, market intelligence, and generally I would look at it as go-to-market strategies for businesses, for different companies. And that is across the, I would say majority, 29 sub-Saharan African countries where we have some level of experience and work across that. The last pillar is the policy shaping, and I would say most of that has been engagement with government agencies, regional development partners, and all that. And it is more of what are they working towards? How do we support that? Because when we support that, and I'll give a case example here. This year in April, you have the National Health Products and Regulatory Authority bill that was passed in Parliament, signed off by the President, right? An aspect of it is, I would say, contextualization of the AU model law on health products regulation. Some aspects of it, I would say, substantial, which is a good modernization of where the laws are. In the initial formation and actually revision 2 of the AU model law on regulation of health products and technologies, we were part of the technical team supporting and giving our insights by analyzing what is the intelligence and best practices across others. That becomes a journey for us to say we are modernizing the regulatory requirements and the provisions. Currently within the East African community, and I'm giving this because we are within the East African community, we need to be cognizant of what developments are emerging. The East African community, the parliament, is reviewing a medicines and health products bill. They are hoping it would be passed by 2027 and or early 2028. In that review, whatever is happening is what gaps are there. There was an initial industry briefing yesterday, and I would request that for those of you who are here, stay cognizant. I know NDA probably will get the communication, or if you've not gotten it, they are having a series of engagements from next week. Please let us give our feedback and our contributions, because that is what will ensure that when we're talking about regional integration and cohesion within the East Africa community, We understand where we're moving towards. We're enabling market access. We are ensuring strengthened regulatory mechanisms, and we're moving into that future that we do hope for and aspire for. And that will be a good opportunity for us as we move into that frontier. So that covers the key different areas that we're looking at. In the specific courses, I just wanted to mention them. The first one is regulatory affairs, where we look at regulatory landscape and regulatory requirements from the initial product registration for new product registration, clinical trials, medical technologies, alternative therapeutics and products, but also looking at it from regulatory policy and intelligence and the business fundamentals of it. Why is that important and why am I mentioning the specific business fundamentals? Unless you know the policy, there's a gap. But then in the business fundamentals is regulatory is the gateway for the business. But also you as a regulatory professional, whether you're working in a company or whether you're working at a professional level, individual, consultancy, you're running a business. Does it make business sense for you? And what will make a company employ you over him as a regulatory specialist, internal or as an external person? How do you establish that value? Because if you can't establish it, definitely nobody's employing you just to be warming a seat to say they've met a requirement. So that is a key piece. So that is how we do the other one. The other one is pharmacovigilance and patient safety, and it's more on how do we ensure that companies meet the pharmacovigilance requirements that are in law, but also are using that pharmacovigilance requirement as an enabler for success and patient safety. And one key thing that is critical about that is, and it's a trend that we're observing in most of the countries, yes, there's development, even in the NDA law that I talked about, the act that was passed, there's a requirement that every company must have a QPP, which is fantastic. But the trend that we're seeing is a company will recruit you as a QPPB to mark a regulatory compliance, text box, email addresses to collect and review the material that is being safety submission. So are you really a QPPB doing the work? Or are you meeting David's requirement that actually you have a QPPB, but the Ugandans are still taking poison, and when they report, nothing is happening? Those are reality. So we looked at how do we ensure that people have the competence and they understand what is required from an operational standpoint, what are the technical requirements that needs to be there. Then the other one is supply chain, and supply chain is critical for us. When we look at it, it was critical in the sense that the supply chain, the commercial operational side, the supply chain in medicine looking at the technical controls that need to be placed. If the technical person does not understand the business side of it, we blow. If the technical person does not understand the operational side, they're not making business sense, the company is likely not going to work, right? But when the business person is understanding the business but letting go of the technical, they're giving people substandard products in the market. That is a lost opportunity. How do we ensure those are interlinked, that we can deliver value where it needs to be? And then the other piece, now, which is now the two new additions in our courses and our program, we have medical affairs and we have product management. Medical affairs looked at it in terms of evidence generation. Conventionally, we talked about how there's no limited clinical research that is happening in the continent, but we still use medicines, which means we're getting clinical data that's coming out. How do we synthesize, analyze it to help it inform clinical treatment decisions, to make it inform a reimbursement plan from a commercial economic perspective, from economic analysis? But also, how does we use that to inform whether we are repositioning a product from treating one disease into another? And how do we make it be an integral part of the system? Then the last one is the product management. Some of you who are into entrepreneurship, I know there are people who are distributing products in the market. You have your product, you're deciding, maybe I want to bring new, let's say for example, which product is the most common? Now we're dealing with Ebola, right? I want to bring an Ebola vaccine. What will make you make a decision to bring it? There's a clinical need, definitely vaccines are needed for these diseases that are coming. But what are the other considerations from an economic standpoint that will make it be a viable product economically? But also, how do you communicate that data to the right stakeholders rather than just deciding to market, then 2 years down the line, you go bust, then we start afresh, we're trying to bring a new product or probably closing shop, going to another domain. How do we ensure that we professionalize our businesses and professionalize our commercial entities and ventures that we're looking at? So that is the whole ecosystem and whole work that we're doing as African Pharmaceutical Network. And as we're starting this journey in Uganda, we are hoping that you can be part of this journey with us. You can walk it with us with a commitment that we are not going to fail the Ugandan patient or the Kenyan patient who will get a product in Uganda or the African patient in any part of the continent where they are. That they trust that there's a pharmacist, there's an expert somewhere who is doing everything within their power with the right resources, with the right support ecosystem to help me get what I need. That is the journey that we're on in African Pharmaceutical Network. And I'm hoping that this starting conversation seeks the ground and help us go together. Thank you.